morning everybody, and good morning Mrs. Clark.
Good morning Mrs. Wirral.
Today we're going to be speaking about coding for children in an early years environment, either in a kindergarten or in an early primary school setting. We have with us here a little robot called a Bee-Bot, and Bee-Bots are the perfect example or tool for teaching coding to early years students. Let's have a little demonstration. So now that we've looked at the Bee-Bot move across the table and perform some actions, I was going to ask Mrs. Clark what a Bee-Bot actually is and how can we use it in our early years classroom?
A Bee-Bot is it's a digital device. It's a floor robot that students in the early years can use to develop the concept of coding. Using the Bee-Bot, they learn about sequencing, which is part of the initial process of learning to code. So breaking down a problem into a series of steps or algorithms, which are then programmed onto our Bee-Bot. And if we have a closer look, we'll see a series of arrows and different buttons. And the different directional buttons program or make the Bee-Bot move in a particular way. So students are actually learning to analyse a problem to determine what sort of steps or directions the Bee-Bot should move in. Debugging is an important concept for children to understand and develop, that if they make a mistake, that's all part of learning, and debugging is going through a sequence of steps that they have made and working out where there was an error. So they would go through their sequence of steps, make a correction or debug their coding program, and then retest the solution. So part of the Bee-Bot is to actually go through, analyse their possible solutions and work out maybe the most creative and innovative one that they can to solve a solution.
So now I'm joined by Miss Martin, who is the school's unit coordinator for coding. Miss Martin, you're going to tell us about some coding.
I sure am. Okay, can you put your hands on your head, please? Now can you put them on your shoulders and your lap? Now believe it or not, that's a sequence of steps, and that leads into coding. So this is how we would introduce coding to our younger students. We would first explore what instructions are, and of course we're looking at year 1, year 2. So we were going to do some chalk drawings on the floor of just chalk lines and getting the children to be in partners, and one person tells the other child what they want them to do. Mm-hmm. So for instance, take 2 steps forward. That child will go 2 steps forward, then they will be told to turn left.
That's a great idea.
And then they will go forward. Skills that they learn through doing it practically with their bodies, they can then introduce it into lesson 2 when we look at the Bee-Bots.
Okay. Now, I believe that they have to write down for their obstacle course the sequence of steps, so that would be arrows.
So that links to our curriculum. When our curriculum says to recognise and explore patterns in data and represent data as pictures, symbols or diagrams. So to introduce the Bee-Bot, we would get them as a class to sit around in a circle, and the teacher will introduce it as a fun game. So we want them to learn the different sequences that they can do using the Bee-Bot. Once they have done that, they will then go on in small groups to just have a play with the Bee-Bot and get to learn what it does and how it works. So we're starting off as a group, then going off individually, and then in our next lesson, we get them to use a map and to go from one point to another point. As you've just drawn on here, we've got an example of what the sequence would look like.
With this instruction here, if we were to repeat it, say, do it again,
yes,
would that be a pattern?
That's exactly what that is. In the curriculum, it says that they want you to follow and describe, represent a sequence of steps and directions to solve a simple problem and to explore patterns.
Okay.
So we are exploring patterns here, and we are solving problems when we debug the issues that we come across.
Right.
And with our map, we want to get our platypus down to Tasmania. So we need to work out which direction he'll be travelling.
So the students are doing this, they're coding, they're doing sequence of steps, they're debugging.
And do you know what else? They're using computational thinking.
Brilliant.
They're using that depth of thinking, that solving of problems.
And all the while they're having fun.
Exactly.
So once the students have completed their unit and they're feeling quite confident with their coding and debugging skills, I was actually speaking in the staff room with a colleague, and he mentioned that a great way to make the children feel empowered and to take ownership and to show off their skills is to is to have a parents' afternoon and invite their parents in and show them their newfound coding skills, and maybe even turn the tables and teach their parents how to program, code the Bebop. What do you think of that?
Oh, I think that's a wonderful idea. It's really good to get the kids to take ownership of what they're doing, and I think that would just cement their learning